Hello.
Hello.
And welcome back to another episode of Our Years. This is Barry.
I'm Rima.
The other day, I was chatting with some friends. I feel like everybody is in the same boat of like what it means to be in our 30s and not having things figured out. And it's so funny because I feel like back in when we were like early 20s, we felt like, you know, by 30s, you would have things figured out. You'll have like a very stable life with stable routine. And I don't think it's that.
Yeah, it's really not. I think I also had that where I thought like when you're in your 30s, you'd be married, obviously. And then you'd have at least one kid. You'd be a homeowner.
At least one kid.
At least
30, that was your idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's true for me also.
Yeah, and your career growth was very linear, right? It was like, okay, uphill, individual contributor, then people manager. Correct. And constant steady slope. 20% salary base increase. Yeah, little did we know.
Here we are still trying to figure out like if we're in the right
how
industry.
To negotiate.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because, you know, we had this whole idea of what it means to be out in our 30s, and I don't even know where that comes from because, you know, it's not like our parents had it all figured out.
They kind of did though, or they had it figured out in the sense that they did very traditional milestones or conventional milestones. Everybody around me, when I think of my parents or my aunts and uncles, when they were in their 30s, they were very much like 9-to-5 job. Right. Yeah. Very stable income, kids.
Yeah.
So I think we got it from them. I think we saw what we saw. But maybe the kids nowadays will see us.
Yeah.
And then their milestones will be different. Yeah. But I think societal milestones definitely came from my parents, at least for me.
Do you think that maybe they actually didn't have it figured out, but it really came across as they did?
Yeah, 100%.
Because we didn't know any better.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the huge milestones as an adult was me realizing that my parents don't know anything and they're just trying their best.
Right.
Which is, I think, what all of us are doing. You just try your best.
Yeah, I think that's true. Only when I like entered adulthood and, you know, had my own opinions based on data points that I collected in my own life did I realize that my parents aren't right about everything. Yeah. And, you know, that they're still figuring it out. It's also their first time living life.
Yeah.
So they obviously don't know anything as well, or like they don't know everything as we think they should.
Right. And I think it's also a function of time, right? Like when I was in India, most like my dad's generation, and I say my dad because he had a traditional 9-to-5 job as opposed to my mom who was an entrepreneur. My dad had the 9-to-5 life and it was very much like stay in the same company until you retire, and working for the government was considered the end all be all because you'd become a pensioner essentially.
I think that's also true in Taiwan, actually.
Yeah. So now I don't see anyone working towards a pension unless you maybe do work for the government and you work really high up in the government, right? Nobody wants just a 9-to-5 anymore. So I think it's also a function of life. Like what my dad was living in his 30s is so different from what I'm living in my 30s. I cannot imagine being in the same company for the rest of my life. Yeah, but I think back then that was also like a milestone, right? If you left a company, it was almost like seen as a failure point.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
I feel like because the expectation was that you'd stay in one company and rise up the ladder. I don't know how it was in South Africa or Taiwan. Yeah. But it was like there was no such concept as lateral hire. I think when my sister, who's 5 years older than me, started joining the workforce and I saw her peers, then that became more normal. And like in our generation, I feel like most people jump in 2 years.
Right. I think I'm just thinking about this now, right? Like, is it because back in the day in our parents' generation, right, not everybody had the resources to go to higher education and become or get jobs like those, like going into the government and working maybe white collar jobs. I feel like in this society and our generation, I feel like because our parents like worked really hard to get us the resources, a lot of people have these resources of like having higher education, like certificates and degrees, that we sort of the jobs that are beyond maybe the government and things like that because we can and we had the resources growing up to do so.
Yeah, 100%. I would say so. I think the quality of education has gotten better through the generations, at least with people
and access to it.
Yeah, especially with the advent of the internet.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay, speaking about like going into our 30s and having certain expectations because of our parents, what are some of the expectations that you had versus what today's reality is?
I think apart from the conventional marriage, kids, minimum one kid, home ownership was a big deal. I thought everybody just turned 30 and bought a house, and it was very possible. And to be fair, back in the day, it was not as it is a privilege to own a home even back in the day, but I feel like now the dream is becoming more and more impossible.
Unreachable, I would say.
Especially the kind of houses we want to get.
Okay, but that's on us.
Yeah, that is
we
on
don't really need to be wanting those houses, right?
Yeah, we really don't.
Like in the Presidio, I like a hill.
Yeah, but this is who we
with
are.
a 5-bedroom.
Yeah, okay, 5-bedroom. Who's going to clean 5 bedrooms? Right?
You could, at that point, you would have a helper.
See, this is that scarcity mindset.
Correct. You got to dream big.
Yeah, clearly.
But yeah, that to me is like unreachable.
Yeah.
And completely not reality.
Also, like, not reality, I feel like in the SF Bay Area on a single income.
Yeah.
Maybe on a dual income, it's more affordable. Or maybe like more up and coming cities. Like, I feel like a lot of people are investing now in Austin and Arizona, like our age group.
Should we move?
No, thanks.
I think we should move.
We barely moved here.
We would be living like queens if we were to move.
If we were.
Have you seen the houses? The other day I was looking at like houses in Austin because that's what we do. Okay. Houses with like 5 bedrooms, which is exactly what I want, with its own garden and
exactly want a 5-bedroom. Let's just like unpack that a little bit.
You need a room for like guests.
Yeah.
You need 2 rooms for guests. You need a movie theater.
Okay.
Then you need a study, and then you have a master.
You need a movie theater.
Correct. You do a playroom. You need a playroom.
So we live in a 2-bedroom, like currently, and my dad was talking about visiting us, and he's like, "So where will I live? Like where? Like seriously?" He was like, "Do you not have a spare?" He's like, he was shocked that I don't have a spare room, and I'm like, "Why will I have a spare room?"
Does Ayappa dad know how like
the rental prices?
Correct.
No, he really does not. And also I was like, if you visit me for like 2-3 weeks, you want me to pay rent for a spare room throughout the year for the 2-3 weeks that you're going to visit me? How does that make sense? He's like, I can't believe you don't have a spare room.
He's like, how is my daughter doing so poorly?
He thinks I'm doing very badly in life, but that is a different conversation. Talk about milestones.
Talk about milestones, seriously.
He's like, you don't have a spare bedroom.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Like, if we move to Austin, problem solved.
Yeah.
He can pick between 3 bedrooms.
Yeah, and the movie theater.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, if he wanted to, he can sleep in the movie theater.
Yeah. You're ready to start off a new life in Austin, make new friends.
Maybe.
Really?
Maybe. I feel like SF has set me up for making new friends, so maybe I'll just...
You just rinse and repeat?
Correct.
Okay.
Now that I have the skills.
Do you?
With the 5 friends that I have.
Nice.
But yeah, I was actually chatting to a family friend. She moved here like some 30 years ago. And, you know, she bought a house and she was saying that her down payment...
Don't tell me, I'll feel sad.
Guess how much her down payment was?
20K.
5K, Rima.
Oh my God.
Her down payment was 5K.
That's so upsetting. Opportunity cost, by the way. We weren't born in the 70s.
Okay, maybe I'm going to take that back. I don't know if it was 5K, but she signed the contract for 5K to say that, you know, this house is going to be hers and then she's going to pay the rest when she qualifies.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe I'm not sure if it was 5K down payment.
So this whole story is just a lie.
But it's crazy to me. And like, I didn't ask her how much her house that she bought back then was, but she lives in like a residential community, very nice. And it was a plot of land and she had to build the house. But it's like, it sits on its own piece of land. So it has like a backyard, and it's like 2 stories, got an amazing view in San Jose.
Yeah.
And it's just like accessible to a lot of other things. And I'm just like, wow, must have been so nice to be able to afford a house back in the 30s.
Yeah. Well, you know.
Back 30 years ago. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, function of time.
Sure.
Yeah. That's a distant dream now, especially on a single income.
Wild.
Unless you're like one of those people that got poached by Meta.
Recently, the poaching war between Meta and everybody else.
Yeah, unless you're one of that crew.
And for those of you who don't know, some of these people were getting packages of 300 million as like something that were offered in order to poach them from like all the other tech companies to go into Meta.
But with like RSUs and everything. I saw one of the guys tweeted.
Who cares?
Saying,
I don't care. Okay. You can pay me 300 RSUs. I'll be there.
You'll be there.
I will be there.
They're going to be under so much pressure. They're probably working like 50-hour weeks.
I don't know if that's true. If like they're super smart, because these are like the smartest people who are like driving AI and ML, right? Like that is why they're being poached. They're the people that started like, let's say the image sense or the image processing of like OpenAI, right? Like things like that. Obviously they are the pioneers of the next generation of technology. And so it makes sense that they're being poached for that.
It makes sense, but I think that because of that amount, they're going to be under a lot of scrutiny and pressure to deliver.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, if they are the people who created, you know, or pioneered those sort of technology, I feel like, you know, they have the mental capacity and...
They're all Asians.
They're all Asians.
They just build themselves to not burn out.
I'm glad to see that there's a woman in this group of people. But good for that woman.
Yeah.
She looks something like 27.
I mean, Asians don't really...
Okay, true. But still, I'm just like, that is wild.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's one Indian dude.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
I think Asian also.
Nice.
This is the only time I'll claim him as Asian.
Yeah, only when he's doing successful things. Barry doesn't think India's part of Asia.
No, I do think, well, technically India is part of Asia.
Yes, it is.
But what I'm saying is, you define them as Asians versus Indians, because Indian in itself is such a big population that you don't need to include them in the Asian population.
We do have a lot of people.
That's the logic.
Sure. Yeah, we do have a lot of Indians though.
Yeah. Very much sidetracked, but bring it back. I think home ownership is definitely a big one. That is like a myth.
What is a myth for you?
I think like being in a certain place in your career, like being a manager or being just like something high up rather than just in like ICT, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe there are people like that. I believe there are people in their like 30s,
that are
mid-30s.
on the linear trajectory.
Right.
Yeah,
but there is limited space and headcount for managers, right? And given you're in such a competitive industry, it's so hard to expect that for yourself, right? It's not just about you doing hard work and putting in those efforts and time.
Yeah, it's not
hours.
a meritocracy.
It's not, right?
And that's another myth. It's not a meritocracy.
Say more.
Yeah. So two things about what you were saying. One is, I used to think that if you just work hard, then you're automatically going to rise up the rank. But that I learned very early on that's not true.
Right.
So I don't know if that's a 30s myth versus just a being in a workforce myth. But yeah, I realize it's not a meritocracy. There's so much of like schmoozing that you need to do to get ahead.
The people who actually make it are people who are very good at schmoozing.
Yeah.
Schmoozing.
Nice.
The people who are very good at like, I'm thinking about the Mandarin word, but it's basically being able to talk to higher management.
And advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
In a way that's not slimy.
But I don't even think it's just advocating for yourself. It's being able to create good relationships with the higher ups, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if you don't have the skills, if you're able to do that, that almost like opens the doors for you to get
100%.
in.
Yeah. And to the point that you were talking about a linear career trajectory, I also used to think that. And now I've realized in my 30s that it's not just linear, but you could be in a place in your career where you're very happy being an individual contributor and you just want to stay at what job you're doing for a few years because you want to make time for other aspects. Maybe you have a side hustle. Maybe you want to focus on other aspects, maybe your health, your hobbies. And so you're very much at peace with what you are doing only for that moment and you're not thinking about rising up the rank. And that's okay. As opposed to, you could also just be very restless and you want to rise up the ladder very quickly. And so all the other things, like I think one of our friend recently told us that he's trading his youth for the career, going up on the career ladder. And it's like a very conscious choice that he's doing, right?
Yeah.
And so I used to think that was the only way, but the first thing is what I'm seeing a lot of people do now. And it's very nice to see it because I think it sort of normalizes that. I think the book Radical Candor talks about the two people. They call the people who are very stable rocks and they're like rock stars. And so they're very okay with what they're doing. Even if they have a 9 to 5, they're really good at what they do and they just want to become even more better at that. But they don't want to like manage people and so on, which is a given to rise up the ladder, right? Especially in corporate. Right. And so but the people who want to rise up the ladder, they're called superstars because they're so restless, you can't keep them in one project for very long. So I'm also realizing that there are all these different aspects of what success means. Right. And it's not just linear. So that is a myth.
But even like linear rising up, I feel like that definition can mean a lot of different things, right? It may mean to some people getting promoted to managers and more leadership roles, but for others, it may just be promoting to a different level of ICT, right? And so everybody's idea...
ICT is individual contributor.
Thanks. Of like... everybody's definition of like rising and success looks different, right? And again, to your point about, some people may just be okay just being in maybe the same ICT but having a side hustle, and they can be doing really well in their side hustle, and maybe that is actually their passion and their dreams, and in fact what they have as a full-time is just something to pay the bills, right? And I guess that's another myth, I think, is like what people think of success is maybe rising up to be a managerial or leadership role, but in fact success may mean just you being very good at what you're passionate about and leaving a footprint with what you're passionate about, right? And I think that contributes like to the under 30 kind of work hustle culture that I think can actually become quite toxic. I think when, we enter the workforce in America, I think specifically, I think that was more prominent than maybe when I was in Asia. I think here, everybody is a superstar. Everybody is very good at what they do. All the resumes look alike. What makes you stand out, right? Everybody comes from all these like Ivy League, like top achieving schools and has like an impressive resume, and everybody looks the same. How do you stand out, and how do you make yourself, or how do you prove that you are better than others? I think it makes the environment in which you're trying to grow very toxic, because then you're finding other ways to like get to the top. Yeah, but anyway, I think like my new redefined expectation of my 30s is, you know, realizing that everybody's on their own timeline and not putting pressure on yourself because of societal expectations or milestones that people expect you to have already achieved.
Yeah, 100%. I think the other thing is that everybody when I was growing up, everyone in their 30s looked the same, like in the sense that they had similar lives. But now I'm in my 30s and I see people around me and they all have such very different lives.
Yeah.
Some people are single, some people are partnered up, and even partnered up is maybe they don't believe in the institute of marriage, so you know they're dealing with that, reconciling that. There are some people who are realizing they don't want kids. There are some people who are having kids, and so it's just like there's a whole rainbow of things that I'm seeing, as opposed to when I was growing up everybody had similar lives. So I think it sort of normalizes the fact that everybody has on a different timeline, and to not put pressure on yourself to like fit into it.
Yeah, for sure. Shifting gears into like another part of going into our 30s, and some of the myths is like more personal, is like self-identity, and kind of like having certain expectations of when you were in 30s. I think that ties in with like we kind of expected to be married and things like that.
Have minimum one child.
Minimum one child. It's funny because I think like that's true. When I had this like idea of what my timeline would be, I was like, oh, by 27 I would be married, you know, maybe live the married single life by like 2-3 years, and then have my first child in my 30s, like you said. The minimum one child by your 30s,
and then have an age gap between when you want your second child. Because you obviously will have a second child.
But yeah, like some of that is different now. And so what do you think are some of the self-identity milestones that are more realistic now to you?
I think a lot of identity things tie to what I value, right? And for instance, when I was in my 20s, I didn't care about the work I was putting out, not in terms of quality, but the sort of impact it was doing into the world. Like I was in consulting and I was very okay just working for just consulting for Fortune 500 companies and developing my skill set. And I didn't care really about company culture. Like I worked for a company that was sort of very toxic in their work culture, but it didn't bother me. I was just like, I'm just going to stay in my lane, and everything around me is just noise, right? But now when I moved here and when I was looking for like my job in my 30s in America, it was very important. Like culture, for instance, was very important. And so because it has to be tied with what I value and what I want to put into the world. So I feel like my self-identity is also shaping up right now, and I know very much what I'm okay with, I'm not okay with. And so even if it's happening just around me, I don't want to be in that environment. Right? So I think that's a huge change for me in terms of tying my values to, say, what I do every day. And you spend a lot of time at work, so that's a very important factor.
Do you think that it's because in your 20s you didn't really care for realizing the values that you had, or did you feel like the values that you have now weren't evident to you back when you were in your 20s, and that's why you were okay with working in like a toxic work environment? Yeah,
I used to think that I thought it was okay because I'm just here to like learn, like develop my skill set, and in the end I didn't really tie my identity with who I was working for. And even now I don't think I tie my identity to who I'm working for, but I do think it's important for me to justify certain choices I'm making to myself more than anybody else. And so I think that's become more important. Like how I spend my time and the environment has become more important. And even in my personal life, I feel like when I was in my 20s, I could, even if I had a core group, like I could hang out with a much larger group and I didn't really care about how they were behaving and what choices they were making. But now I don't think I would put myself in that situation.
That's true. I think you are more mindful of your values and making sure that whatever you do is tied back to your values. That's true. I think the same applies for me as well. Especially when like now that I'm in my 30s, I think I care a lot about how I'm spending my time and energy. And only doing things that I feel like will help me grow or add value to
even if it's just fun, like what the idea of fun should be tied to, like I agree with what you're saying on how you spend your time. And it's not always like, at least for me, it's not always like productivity driven. Even if it's winding down, I'm not going to spend it with like anybody. Right.
Yeah, that's true. I think for me, it's almost like I would say I lean the same, but I also want to be mindful of like, you know, if you aren't welcoming of new relationships, you're never going to have relationships with friends that are new and that could be a value add to your life, right? So I think it's a balance. But
for sure.
Yeah.
Another thing is when you're in your 20s, like you have like, okay, at least for me, I stayed in the same city for a very long time. So my circles just kept getting bigger and bigger. And so even if like, for instance, like I wanted to say, go to a museum and none of my friends were interested in to do that, they'd still come with me because it's sort of like, we're all in this together.
Yeah. Right? So sweet.
And they'd complain and like be very annoyed, but they still come. But it was just like, it was a given that if I want to do something, they have to do it. And if they want to do something, I have to do it. But now I have like I have friends for different purposes.
Activities.
Like I have creative friends. I have like friends that I just do music things with, like go to concerts or gigs. And then I have friends that are only like, I do like professional development with. So that's another thing about how segregated the world is.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Because like, and I think it's not just you, right? The other people are applying the same thing. And
that's true,
that's why everybody kind of lumps together for the same like activities. That makes total sense.
Yeah, you have like these little pockets of your life and then you like go through different doors and there are different people behind those doors for what you want to do. And you sort of don't do those, like, you don't, or maybe the friends that are like more, you become closer to friends you can do more things with, right? You have more commonality with, more values
for sure.
aligned.
I think that's how it ties into like maybe self-discovery and, you know, realizing that you're discovering a new part of yourself because you're now prioritizing all of this, rather than when you're in your 20s, you're like, okay, I can just do anything with everyone because the main point is to have fun with everyone. Whereas now you're more like putting in effort and time and energy into something specific that you want for yourself.
Yeah. Like the men on Bumble say, they doing it with intention.
Oh yeah, dating, everything is intentional nowadays. But I don't know about men on Bumble saying that.
They say it,
but do you feel it? That's another conversation in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like part of self-discovery in my 30s is like finding new hobbies or even reclaiming old ones, same as like finding new friends or reclaiming old friends and friendships that maybe meant a lot to me in the past but kind of like dropped. I don't want to say dropped, but like kind of like faded in between. And now that you're in your 30s and they are as well, you kind of see what sort of person they've developed into. And if that's something that you feel like is a good fit for you and who you are nowadays, I think it's nice to reclaim those sort of friendships and hobbies.
Yeah. And I wonder, you know, what I was saying about how you see people around you and everybody looks very different. Like I've started getting invited to baby showers recently. And surely like there have been like a whole slew of women before me who've had that feeling, right, where you're single or you're dating but people around you are inviting you to baby showers, and soon I'll be like going to like kids' birthday parties. Surely like everybody has experienced that, but I don't feel like people talk about it. Maybe again it's because it's so different now in our age group, as opposed to my sister who is like 5 years older than me, and her a lot of her friends were having a similar life as her, as opposed to my mom who like everybody around her had a similar life, right? So I feel like for them maybe it's not as jarring for how many things I'm seeing that's different. I wonder if they felt it, or like, do people talk to you about that?
About how different? Maybe I'm not quite catching.
Like, you know how like we can go to like the weekend on the weekday, and then we are also going to like these kids' baby showers, and then we're doing all these like you said, reclaiming our hobbies, and then we're dating and we're doing like all these things. But like I feel like are everyone like that you speak to in our age group, do they feel that difference?
I think in my age group, friends who are having kids all group together. And so they have the same hobbies. But I feel like on the contrary, people like us kind of all group together.
Yeah, fair.
So yeah, I mean, I think they feel it, but it's kind of like like you said, you have different pockets of friends for different activities. But
it's a function of time.
Yeah.
But then if you get like partnered up and then if you have kids, then you go into that little pocket.
That category. Yeah, exactly. I think another thing about reaching or going into your 30s is that because I guess just inherently I've been as like a people pleaser just growing up. I think now that I've reached my 30s, I think I just have stopped trying to please people I don't like. I think I still try to maintain good rapport, but I don't go out of my way to make sure that they're happy with me. If I'm going to do something that satisfies my needs but not theirs, I think that's okay for me, especially now that I'm in my 30s and I think I value all my closest friends and I don't have time and energy to value all my friends. So yeah, I think that's one of my milestones of entering my 30s.
Good job.
Thanks. I think I should have done it earlier, but it's just so hard for me. I guess it's like part of reaching your 30s and kind of healing in different ways. I think maybe part of people pleasing is healing a part of my trauma of not being loved when, you know, you're a kid. Not that I wasn't loved, I was very loved. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like when you're a kid, why you become a people pleaser has a lot of reasons. Maybe you were bullied as a kid and you kind of just learn to do things in ways that helped people like you or helped all different people like you. And that's, I think, contributed to my need and want to be a people pleaser.
You said that you almost don't have time right now to please people.
Yeah.
But I think even if you had the free time, I don't think you would do it. I feel like you've reached like
That's
a place
true.
in your life where you know what you value and what you don't, or who you value and who you don't.
Yes.
And so I think it's just that realization. I feel like even if I put you on vacation for 3 months, you're
true.
not going to go and like start pleasing people.
I think that's true. Yeah, I think you're right. I feel like I've kind of reached a point where I've accepted that I can't possibly please everyone and it's not necessary to please everyone.
Yeah.
It's only important just to make good relationships out of people that actually matter to you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I think that was a part of a realization of going into my 30s. And I think a part of it is healing and being okay with it. And I think that acceptance of being okay with it is part of healing. And I think a lot of people are actually going through this. Going into your 30s, when I'm talking to my friends, everybody's going to therapy. Everybody is, you know, finding ways to, or like, I feel like a lot of people's self-awareness have become stronger than when they were in their early 20s. And people are realizing what sort of trauma they had in the past and are trying to find ways to heal.
And work on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a positive sign of being in your 30s, I think.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you did discuss how you now are better at setting boundaries in your platonic friendships or relationships. What's one thing in your 30s that you've unlearned about romantic relationships?
Unlearned.
Yeah. Or you do differently?
I think I'm more intentional.
Okay.
I feel like back when I was younger. Why are you making that
Please
face?
continue.
I think I didn't really care for who I was dating.
Yeah, you were just going with the flow.
Yeah.
Whoever was around.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
And there were a
Same.
lot of people around.
Same.
Like, I'm not trying to, you know.
Yeah. But because like you're in school and it's such a social environment,
Sure.
Anytime that you're not studying by yourself, you're literally around people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like I knew how to flirt back then. I don't anymore. I think the thing with dating now is that because I'm so intentional, it's just straight up like an interview with my friends.
I can
and
see
I've
that.
forgotten how to flirt.
Oh.
I mean, I still have some
Do you?
ability to flirt.
We'll need to do a postmortem with your dates that you've gone on.
Yeah, that's another story. No dates so far. But yeah, I think one of the things I had to do now in my 30s is being more intentional so that I'm not wasting my time away on guys that are not intentional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
I don't know if I had to unlearn this, but it's just what I value now as in a partner is so different than what I did previously. Right?
Say more.
Like when I was earlier, when I would date, it was just sort of like experiencing life, like just going through the motion or like having fun more than anything else.
Going with the flow.
Yeah, and even if I remember, even when I was dating in like my mid 20s or late 20s, a lot of conversations were, if someone told me something that was very different from my value system, I didn't like stop seeing them. I would be like, okay, cool.
Sure. Same. I think that's what I mean, is that I wasn't intentional about my dates.
Yeah.
And so like I was okay with whatever they were doing.
Yeah, but now, and I think people have been scarred because recently on Bumble,
You have? You mean?
I'm chilling, but one guy on Bumble, like immediately he's like, hi, I'm a vegetarian. And I'm like, what the hell? And he's like, no, I've been burned in the past where I've dated people and this has come up like in third, fourth date and I just don't want to go through that motion again. And he's like, I'm dating intentionally. So if you have a problem with vegetarianism, tell me now. And I was like, hello to you too.
First of all.
Yeah, first of all. But that's like a thing around us where people are just like, they don't have time.
You know, I almost want to start doing that because I'm pescatarian and I've also been burned. Where I think some people do care about that.
Right, yeah.
That sort of
preference.
Yeah.
Lifestyle choice.
Lifestyle choice. Yeah. And it's true. Like, I think like you just need to be upfront about it. And that's what I mean by saying, you know, because you're dating intentionally now, it's almost like you need to check boxes on like a resume as soon as you get to know someone.
Like the first filter is like just non-negotiable.
Yeah, because...
And then the fun comes later. We'll have fun only if you tell me you won't leave me if I'm a pescatarian.
You know, it's funny because like I think that kind of cuts off on the fun. And people are just like, oh, this is such an unfun person.
I know.
But I think I'm pretty fun. I'm kidding. You need to cut that out.
You are fun. But yeah, it's funny because when I tell my friends who are partnered up about my dates, they're just like, why aren't you having fun?
But that's the thing, right? Like, I don't want to have fun and then only realize like 5 months down the line that this person has non-negotiables for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think that's the difference.
I think that's the difference. Like we've kind of
have cautious fun.
Yeah. I think it's just the sequencing is different. Like back when you're in your 20s, you started dating because just vibes.
Yeah.
And then later on, you'll be like, okay, I still have time. So it's either we figure it out together or like I cut off this person and that'd be okay. But now you kind of have to like switch it around because you don't have time to have fun with this person and then realize that it's not okay.
Yeah. My friends who are partnered up have all this advice on like dating when they haven't been on any, like, forget apps, they just haven't dated in like so long. Mm-hmm. But one of them was like, oh, just have like, go to fun dates so that it breaks the monotony of dating fatigue. But that, to your point, if I'm just having fun, then I'm not really like getting to the crux of whether I want to have a relationship with this person.
You know,
who has the time for all of this? How has the time for having fun and for figuring out your love life?
Exactly. I think it's all because we're under the pressure of time, but I think we get too in our heads about it, especially if you're not planning to have kids. Does that really matter then, right?
Yeah, no, I think at this point it's just like one of those things that I personally I just don't want to just date anymore, right? Like if I'm building a life that I want for myself, either like I do it alone or I know I have to do it with someone, because a lot of decision points depend on another person, right? Like, so I went on a date recently and one guy told me that he thinks I'm too independent to be like date
to be in a relationship,
because he's like, you make so many choices about like finances by yourself, and he meant it in a way that you're going to find it hard once you get partnered up to like have someone's opinion constantly. And I was like, I'm very happy to have someone do all the work, but I say it as a joke, but I don't know what will happen.
I think that's interesting, and I think there's some truth to it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of relationships work because you kind of rely on each other to do something together, or to get chores done, or to get the bills sent out.
Yeah, or like make like lifestyle moves, right?
Or life decisions.
Yeah.
And because we're so independent, I think it becomes harder for someone to feel like there's a need that you guys need to do that together.
Yeah.
So I see some truth.
Yeah, I see it too. Like I made a joke about it on the date in jest, but I can see it too.
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of very independent, successful women nowadays are single, for that exact reason.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think my mom said this back in the day, and I'm like, how are you encouraging me to not be independent and to not be successful on my own?
I know.
And I think like it's true though that when you are, it becomes harder to find a partner because they don't feel like there's a need for them.
Yeah. Growing up, my mom always like instilled in me that if I want to achieve anything, like if I want to like say go on a holiday or buy something like jewelry that is very ambitious, like an ambitious purchase, then I need to work hard towards it, right? And it's not just going to fall on my lap. And so she's instilled this in me. And now that I am this person, she's like,
no, you need to dial back on it.
You need to like dial back on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this
I know,
is
same.
Intergenerational trauma healing.
Same. Yeah. I think they made me this person, and they're telling me to not be this person now.
They're like, oh, you're going to have a hard time like getting a guy like this.
Yep.
Who made me like this?
Here we are. I think another thing about relationships, and that can include like family and friends as well as partners, is that I think I set better boundaries now that I'm in my 30s. I think this whole mindset of when I was in my 20s is that I was still under my parents in a way, right? Like, because I was still in school. And so I kind of followed whatever my parents had for me, and advice that they have given me. But now that I'm in my 30s, I think, it was like a very evident pivot that, I'm on my own now. Obviously, I think I've always been independent, but I think I've always been close to my parents. And so it was very hard to set that boundary between true independence and still having my parents feel like, I want to share things with them and have their advice and input. And so it was very hard for me to distinguish that boundary without them feeling like I'm cutting them from all my life choices and decisions.
Right.
But now that I'm in my 30s, I think I want to show them that I want to include them in my life and I care for the inputs and advice, but at the same time, this is my own life and I want to make decisions for myself. So I think now that I'm in my 30s, I have a little bit more life experience and understanding of how to approach those sort of conversations. So I feel like I have better control over boundaries, and these include like maybe my parents having a say into what I want to do and where I want to be in life. I think one of the biggest ones was very evident was when I moved from Taiwan to the US, because I moved to Taiwan initially to be closer to my parents, but then my decision to move out of Taiwan into the US was also my decision, right? And it was kind of contradictory because the first move to Taiwan was to be closer to them and they were happy with that. But then when I wanted to move out, they were obviously very sad about it, but I was like, this is something that I want for myself because it's a life I want to live, and as sad as I felt that I was moving far away from them, it's something that a boundary that I had to set because ultimately they're not going to be there some time in the future. And so if I just stayed on the path they wanted me to do, would that really make me happy?
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of the biggest. That wasn't in my 30s. I was like late 20s.
Because you just turned 30.
I just turned 30. Just hit that milestone. I'm not like mid 30s like Rima is.
And people listen to our episode on different times. My age is different in every episode.
But no, your age has consistently been like
mid-30s.
Correct.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I think that's a boundary that I've had to set. Yeah.
Yeah, very different from me because most of my choices that I made, any huge milestone pivots, whether it was career, whether it was immigrating to the US, for instance, has been very independent of what my parents or the people around me thought. In fact, a lot of people in my life, I grew up in India, and a lot of people around me left India to do their do their undergrad actually in America, or moved here immediately after doing undergrad in India. So people actually moved to America much sooner than I had. In fact, I was one of the last few people to leave, not just America, like even if they were moving to the UK or Europe, just out of India. I was actually one of the last people to move because I just didn't want to up until that moment. And it like nothing around me, like in my personal life, right, dictated that. It was purely a professional choice. And so that was the move. And even when I told my parents that I wanted to move, it was just an FYI. There was no discussion about it. And so I think just with my parents, at least, they've given me sort of free reign on a lot of choices. Which is why when I listen to like some of the stories you talk about how your parents literally sat down and gave you like these lessons, and it was such everything, like a lot of learning moments. Like I think you told me one story about how you as a kid, you tattled on someone and they were in the wrong, but your mom gave you a beating down because it was wrong to tattle. I feel like I haven't had such learning
Your parents
moments.
gave up on you.
I always used to think, they 100% did. But I used to think that it's because I was second child, like they were just tired of parenting.
I don't think that's what it was though.
Child, I know. So I don't know. Or maybe I was just so wise that they were like, this girl is sorted.
But yeah, I think that is the case, the latter. But I also think it's because they did such a good job on Roshni, and because Roshni and you are close, they felt like there was this you had good people around you to give you good guidance.
I feel like that's putting a lot
giving them a lot of credit.
I think they were over it is what happened.
No, I think they believed and trusted you, and I think my parents did too, but I feel like my parents just got into the habits of feeling like they wanted to be in some sort of control or decision making process in all their kids' life, right? And I think, even though I'm third child, you would have think that they've given up on me at this point. But I think it's also because my brother and my sister, who are older, didn't follow what my parents wanted them to do. And so for, some people feel that like, a possession over their kids.
Yeah, for sure.
And control over their kids. And so I think as a third child, because my brother and my sister didn't follow what they wanted, and because I was a people pleaser when I was younger, I feel like they just got into this habit of feeling like they're always a part of my decision-making process. And even though when I was like moving out of Taiwan, they didn't stop me from doing it, right? Like, it's not to say that, they were like, no, this is not what we want for you. It's not even about that. I think it's more so the sadness and disappointment, or not disappointment, just maybe sadness
at having you leave.
Exactly. That made me feel a certain way.
Yeah.
But also given the conditions of my dad, so he has an illness, and I felt like guilty moving out of Taiwan because I wouldn't be there to kind of take care and support the family in person. So. Yeah.
That's
just
another
combination
thing. Yeah, I think that's another thing in your 30s versus 20s. Where in your 20s, you're so carefree, right?
I wasn't. I was butt clenched the entire way. So I don't know about you.
I think to the point about how now living with intention, right, is also making some really tough calls. I think maybe...
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I did mention that a lot of people in my life left home and left India pretty soon. So maybe... they felt it differently, but when I was moving, right, it was also like, yeah, my parents are getting older, and I'm getting less time to spend with my cousins or my sister, right? I'm missing all these huge milestones, like family moments, like my nephews or nieces being born, weddings. It's just like hard to be there for everything. So I think that's another thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what I kind of had to like set the boundary of, right? Like, because that is going to be a reality when you move out. And so it's just the boundary setting of, what you want for your life versus what they want for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe shifting a little bit more to other aspects of our lives when going into our 30s is like financial stability, also health, being mindful about our health. What are some of the items in that sort of area that you felt like was a shift going into your 30s?
I think in terms of finances, it was, it's sort of everything is on me now, kind of, right? Because even with my master's, I paid for my master's by myself. So it was very much like, okay, I'm dipping into my savings. This is how much debt I have. When do I want to pay it off? What sort of life does that mean? Like, what sort of lifestyle changes does that mean? So it was very much like a feeling of I've sort of all I got, even though I'm sure if I needed help, I'm lucky enough that people will bail me out if needed. Right? I have people in my life who would. Right. But I think it was very much that, I'm sort of like, my life is going to very much shape up to the financial choices that I make.
Right.
And so I think that was like a huge moment.
Yeah.
Which I feel like in India, it's not unheard of for parents to foot your degree, like the tuition that towards your degree. It's not uncommon for that to happen. But I think in America, it's so expensive that a lot of people do end up in student debt because of that. But education is more accessible in India. So I didn't have that in my 20s, but in my 30s, it's even now, right, with like paying off student debt, and now investing, it's very much like I need to make those choices on how I want to invest, and learning about that, which is scary, right? Because it's like very much real money.
Yeah.
So it's scary, but it's also sort of empowering to be like, hey, if I do this, I see this return, and it's sort of amazing that I'm able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So
financially, that's a big pivot. And health-wise, it's definitely being more mindful to like even what I eat, how much I drink, how much I exercise.
You don't care about how much you drink.
Okay,
we see the amount that you drink on the weekends.
I'm in my champagne era.
That's regardless of the point I'm trying to make.
So yeah, it's almost like healthy,
Sure.
And so yeah, just your like literally you see the difference in your metabolism. I don't know if you felt it yet, but that's a fun thing you'll notice.
I think like the metabolism thing you feel it in your late 20s.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it hasn't hit me as hard as you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's calm down. And even the thing about just external beauty, right? It's being okay with like laugh lines, for instance. And a lot of conversations now around me are about Botox or fillers.
That's interesting. Same.
And now I'm like, do I want that? Yeah. And how do I feel about that? Yeah. And it's a very much a real decision, as opposed to when you're younger, you're like, oh no, I don't need that. Right. Like, can't be me.
Yeah.
It's very much now a thinking point. Yeah, that's been very different.
Yeah.
Even of like what sort of makeup you want to wear, if at all, right?
For
like
sure.
Very conscious choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I think your thing about like financial stability and empowerment, I think that's very true about entering your 30s, but at the same time it comes with a lot of pressure because you have this money now. How you spend it will really determine your life going forward, and then obviously for those who have student loans, that's also a lot of pressure that you have to pay off, right? But yeah, I think going into our 30s, I think it's nice to know that you have some fun money now.
Yeah,
I think that's
great.
Yeah, that's a highlight also.
Yeah.
I think I felt very guilty spending fun money because I was under my parents and they were paying for my tuition when I was in school. But now that I have money to earn, I think it's nice and empowering that I get to spend money on my friends and however I want to spend it. I can go on holidays and do a holiday that I want to do instead of, being frugal or extra frugal, for that matter. But yeah, and then your point about like health and metabolisms, 100%, like you feel it when you reach a certain age. But at the same time, I think because I'm hitting my 30s, like I was talking to my friends, and another realization of when you hit your 30s is people automatically start doing marathons.
What is up with clubs. That? I don't understand this obsession with running.
I don't know what it is, but all my friends are doing marathons. Like they're running marathons in this country, then like in the next month. And it's just like a thing people do when they start hitting their 30s.
Maybe it's this thing of how you need to achieve something that's very difficult to prove that you have done something, like you've attained something successful. If it comes easy, I think the thing with 30s is that a lot of people think if something comes easy, then it's not enough or you're not doing well enough. And it's sort of that like 30 under 30 culture, similar to that, right? Like if something comes easy, then it wasn't a challenge and thereby it's meaningless.
Yeah.
As opposed to if it's difficult, then you've actually done something with your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also because, by 30, you would have achieved other milestones and achievements and accomplishments that made you feel fulfilled. So it's now looking at the different areas of your life where you have a new challenge that you can satisfy and fulfill as a sense of accomplishment for yourself.
It's really interesting to see the choices people are making because I know someone who, he's like a second degree friend, and he was just constantly he's Indian, and so he was under a lot of pressure growing up to like be a straight A student and just do really well in his studies. And now he's and he did like the stable life, got a job at Google, was there like for 8 years, and now he wants to become a DJ. So he's Google.
Wow, good for him.
So he's leaving Google to become a DJ.
Good for him.
Yeah, and I was like, it's so interesting to see how like parts of yourself that were repressed because of either society or yourself or choices you made in your 20s, how now in your 30s you're like, screw that noise.
Yeah.
I have this money, I'm going to become a DJ.
But I think that's the thing. Like, I think a lot of people have already felt like by 30, they've already reached a lot of their accomplishments and achievements. So they can now pivot into something else that is a challenge for them.
Yeah. And the opposite is also true, where people I know who are like partying 5 times a week and sleeping for 3 hours because of all the partying in their 20s are now like starting off their own companies, and they think that that's an area that they really need to focus on, and they have like no fun whatsoever. It's the complete opposite.
Right.
So it's like
both ways. Yeah, I can see that for sure. And what was the last thing you mentioned?
About beauty and appearance in your 30s.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree with the whole like being accepting of who you are now. Although I will say that now that I'm in my 30s, I think I care a lot about health. And so I want to try and achieve a certain healthy lifestyle to maintain a certain physique. But at the same time, I'm also okay with like wrinkles and starting to maybe get gray hairs. Maybe not for me, but you're closer to that.
You know what? You're going to gray before me.
Maybe. Yeah. And I think I'll be okay with it. But yeah, I agree with the whole, like, I'm getting a lot of ads on like Botox and fillers. They somehow know.
They know.
They just know, which is scary. But I think it's true. But yeah, I think being okay with body image. I think when you're in your 20s, because of all the environments and like social media, you feel this pressure of looking a certain way or, being a certain physique. But now that I'm in my 30s, you kind of are okay with who you are. Not to say that you don't care about your health, right? Like, or your physique. I think it's more so being okay with your hips being wider, or, you have like smile lines or like wrinkles.
Yeah.
I think that's true. Going into my 30s, I'm a lot more fine with it.
Yeah.
I think I've always been fine with it, but it's just
a thing that you're more mindful of.
Right.
It is like a talking point with people.
Yeah.
It's very much in your face.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, having said that, I think to sum up what it means to go into your 30s is being more accepting and okay with a lot of things.
Yeah.
As is.
And I think it's being okay with your choices both ways, right? I think a lot of people thought there's a lot of self-righteousness when it comes to like beauty treatments like Botox or fillers. But I like the people, I wish I'm more like the people who are just like, hey, I want to look a certain way. And if I can afford it and I want to look like that, then why not?
Sure.
To a point where it's not like affecting my health otherwise drastically. I feel like that's also an acceptance that it's very nice to see.
Yeah, for sure. 100% agree. So kind of just to wrap things up with today's episode, I think a lot of like self-reflection on like what our 30s now look like versus our expectations. What is one thing that you feel is something your 20s self would be proud of now?
I think the fact that I'm reaching or creating the life that I've always wanted, and the fact that I've made headways into it, whether it's immigrating or like the kind of job that I have, or even being able to travel in the way that I want to, right? I think she'd be proud of that. And not making really hard choices. I think when you immigrate in your like late 20s, it's really tough because you're leaving behind a life you've known for your whole life.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was delusion on my part or just confidence, but I was just like, oh, I'm going to do this. And I did it. And I think that is cool to see.
Definitely. I think I was going to say something along the same lines. Who we are today, I think, is a result of a foundation and building block that we have for ourselves in our 20s. I think we consistently work towards a life that we now live. So I think that is something that I'm proud of because all the hard work that went into my 20s.
You're seeing the fruits of it.
Yeah, is a realization in my life now. So like you said, it's like you planted the seeds in your 20s and all that hard work and effort and late night studying is all resulting in fruits now in our life where we get to have the freedom of, like you said, traveling where we want to travel, buying things that we want, living a life and having friendships and a career that we both enjoy and are proud of. I think that's something that I think my 20-year-old self would be proud of.
Yeah.
Yep. Aligned.
Nice.
But yeah, I think that was like a really nice episode for me to do like a reflection.
Same.
And yeah, we would love to see some of you like write to us about your thoughts and some of the items that we spoke about today that helped you reflect on the same. We'd like to hear some of your transitions going into your 30s and also any myths. I think that's always fun to see. So we would love it if you guys share some of those with us. But yeah, I think we're going to wrap it up for today. So we'll see you guys in the next one.
Doodles.
Bye.